Hello and welcome to another segment of Intersections, Policy, Program, and Practice Exchange. My name is Elisa William, and today I have the pleasure to be talking with Executive Director of Mental Health America Duchess, Andrew O'Grady, and Professor of Psychology and Director of the Center on Aging and Disability Policy at Mount St. Mary College and co-founder of NOAR, the National Organization of Adult Addiction and Recovery, Dr. Larry Forbes. So Andrew, do you want to get us started today?
Yeah, I'm really excited about our guest today. Like myself, he's an executive director of an agency down in Mississippi and does a lot of the same work we do.
Tennessee. I'm in Tennessee.
Why did I say Mississippi?
I'm from Mississippi. Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. We got it now.
All right. Well, that's closer. That's good.
Yeah, it's closer to you.
He's here for us to go visit. He does he's written some books and on addiction. He also does some stuff with equine therapy, which is exciting. And I don't know if we'll get into it in this call, but we at MHA and Dutchess are partnering with a horse rescue operation here in Dutchess County and doing equine therapy for veterans. And it's a pretty big project. So maybe someday we'll catch up on that. But I'm really glad to be back. We took a little time off. We're back at it again. We have scheduled guests for the next 4 weeks. And I'm really looking forward to kind of allowing whoever watches this to get a sense of how people are doing things in different parts of the country. We have a guest coming from Australia. We had a guest from Ireland. So we're looking at this country and the world about how they're dealing with addiction and recovery. And you're going to find that it's not much different in all places. And we all struggle with the same kind of stuff. So with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Larry Forbes, who I've known for many years, since my days at Mount St. Mary College, where he's still a professor.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Alyssa. And thank you, Quinn, for joining us.
Yeah.
As Andrew said, we've known each other a long time. Probably about a little over a year ago, with COVID coming in, a little over a year ago, at the Center on Aging and Disability Policy at the college, where I'm a director along with my friend and colleague, Jeff Kahana, COVID arrived. So we have funded projects that we couldn't assemble people. We couldn't get the information out. So we started this platform of, let's catch it on a Zoom call, record it and send it out.
Yeah.
So in two other projects, it was well received. So I come to Andrew and I come to Alyssa and I say, hey, look, I think I've stumbled across something. Let's try this.
Yeah.
It's been so successful. We're in season 2 now.
Awesome.
As Andrew said, there's a rhythm to it. So we're 5 weeks on, 3 weeks off, 5 weeks on, and getting the message out.
Yeah.
And you're part of our season 2.
Well, great.
How did you and I connect? I'm a big believer in the power of connections. I love LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I go out on LinkedIn, look for addiction, recovery, mental health. Boom, there you are.
Yeah.
Okay, and I reached out and I said, hey, here we are.
Yeah.
Is there any way that, and within days you were like, what time and
Yeah.
how do I connect with you guys?
Sure.
On your LinkedIn profile, it talked about working in the field of mental health and addiction since 2004, authored 4 books and co-founded the RAINS model of equine therapy and with Dale Phillips, and currently completing a PhD in psychology.
Yeah.
So just like the 3 of us and everybody that we've had on here, you probably got quite a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe we could start with that. I mean, how did you arrive here in this field, doing the work you're doing in the presence? And
well, I started
out, welcome.
Yeah, well, I enjoy this. I'm a huge proponent of people connecting. The addiction treatment world is really small, if you think about it, and it's always kind of like what Andrew was saying. It's amazing to me. I've talked to people from all over how similar the experiences are, the problems and the challenges, and how they just seem to be so much alike, no matter where you are. But I got into mental health actually early on. I was working on a bachelor's degree in psychology. I started working for Western State Mental Health, which is in Bolivar, Tennessee. And worked in that field, worked through the state health department in Mississippi for a long time doing mental health case management, and kind of just slowly moved from there forward. What really, I guess, got me into the field of addiction had to do with my brother. My brother is an addict, and on death row in Parchman State Penitentiary in Mississippi. And addiction paved that road for him. And there were some mental health issues there as well, but I saw with him and some other similar circumstances where, the addiction really magnified the mental health factors there. And so, I developed a huge interest in that. And growing up where I grew up in North Mississippi area, there wasn't a lot of resources at that time. And typically in the South, that always kind of lagged behind with effective services. So, it was one of those things where I felt like that if you're going to try to make a difference, let's start there and kind of slowly move forward from there. In Mississippi, started out working. I had always worked with addiction on some level, even in mental health, but really kind of full-time addiction stuff. Around 2012, with a place called the Oxford Center, that was later bought by, I think, American Addictions bought it. And that kind of set me on the journey. I worked in Georgia for a while in Augusta, and then went back to Mississippi and was the director of a 46-bed facility there. And then I started talking with Journey Pure. They had an opening in Knoxville, needed a director. And so my wife and I talked about it. And the next thing we knew, last March, we were moving to Knoxville. It's been a fun journey. Where I am now, it's one of the first times where you see from the top down to the bottom of Journey Pure that it's all about patient care. And when you've been around a while, you worked in different areas, the heartbreaking factor sometimes you face is that the people running things, a lot of times, some of the larger ones, a lot of times it really becomes about numbers and things like that. And you have to keep the doors open, but if you're not careful, that focus will get off. That's one of the things I've really enjoyed about Journey Pure is their value of the patient and their commitment to that. So I've really enjoyed where I am. We've made a lot of changes, refocused on some areas as a team, such as continuum of care, really working on our outpatient step-down services. Our population is heavily Medicaid in the area where we are. And so one of the big challenges is getting an adequate continuum of care, because a lot of times our patients, when they leave treatment, there's really not a secure place for them to go. A lot of times they're walking back into situations where there's people that are still using in the home or in the area, which leads to high relapse rates and things like that. And so we've really worked towards PHP housing and IOP housing step downs to get them a continuum of care, to help them build that social network, get more ingrained into the local recovery community. One of the great things about the Knoxville area is they have a huge recovery community, AA meetings, NA meetings, Celebrate Recovery meetings, all those things. And so it gives them a little more time to kind of emotionally, get back to a place where they feel centered and kind of ready to step out, away from that safety net.
Yeah.
So it's been a fun journey though. I've enjoyed it. I'm still enjoying it.
That's a great, your first job in this field doing case management, community case management. That's one of the biggest parts of our agency that I run. And I just believe that is pretty, with the population that we serve, the Medicaid population, with everybody worried about social determinants of health, and are they going to meet their rent? Are they going to get thrown out? Are they having fights with their landlord? Are they having arguments with their neighbors? Are they, do they have their food stamps? Do they have this? They have this? you know, the therapy in the public mental health system is adequate, but for that population, you know, they've reduced the time from 50 minutes to 30 minutes in New York. I don't know what it's like down there, but you know, it's really inadequate in reality because of that. And it's not because of the therapists, and it's not because of the program, because they're excellent. But you know, the limitations we have because of, you know, billing and all sorts of other things, the most important intervention, I think, in the whole mental health system in Dutchess County, and it sounds like the same in Tennessee, is community-based care management. And getting somebody to work with somebody in their place and drive them to make sure they get point A to point B, and put out all those little fires before they smolder into.
Right. Those little things can become really big things, you know, just in a little bit. So yeah, we have recovery coaches here that do a lot of work in that area. And they are as vital as anybody we have. They're in that trench with them and having those conversations of, oh, I don't have enough gas money to get to therapy session. What can I do? You know, and really
a lot of our clients are, you know, they don't have any money. They don't have any money, and they don't have any friends and family. They don't have dad to call or mom to call because they burnt all these bridges. And Larry talk about this a lot. You know, you burn a lot of bridges in this world and mental health world too. And it's unfortunate. Many of them, these case managers, recovery coaches, the people that work for agencies like yours are become the lifeline.
They do.
A go-to person that they can pick up the phone and call. And I'm grateful to run an organization that has that, providing that, because it's so important for these people.
Yeah, it is.
I teach a theories of social casework class. And, you know, these are sophomores and juniors in college. And a lot of them will come out. Some of them will go on for graduate degrees. Some of them will work at agencies similar to Andrew's. They'll do internships. And I use this book by Blundo and Simon. And Simon's a friend. He used to be, Joel Simon, he used to be the social worker at hospice in Orange County. And he's a writer. And he's a big believer in the advocate of solution-focused brief therapy. So I spent years working in institutions, you know, graduate school, like, you know, I tell the students, you know, everybody looks at the world differently because they have the lens of training. So my lens of training down at the new school was, you know, Freudian. I came out of college, experimental, then Freudian, Jungian, and then cognitive behavioral and doctoral work. And then I met Joel. And when I met Joel, it was like I met somebody that just opened up the windows, because I was really tired, stale, and burnt out with pathology. The stuff that we see, I mean, it just gets old. I mean, the things that people do to themselves, the thing, you know, and the one thing that's typically missing, especially in institutional settings, is thank you. You've helped. You don't get that. So he introduced me to this solution focused. And he wrote a book on solution-focused case management. And he came to me, and I was very honored. He asked me to write the foreword to it. And what I talked about is just what I talked about here. I had been trained in one paradigm, but then the window, it was like fresh air, because it wasn't about problems. You know, I think the thing that, and I'm not just saying this because he's here, but, you know, we have snow up here. You know, and the fact is that my friend over there who runs an agency, you're not going to find him sitting behind his desk. You're going to see him outside in the, you know, removing the snow. You know, I mean, he's kind of like a let's get to it type of guy. You know, and Alyssa, could you bring up that picture of, you know, we have, as it is in Tennessee, you know, we had state institutions. I don't know where you are completely, you know, but we're vacated out. I mean, we're everybody's community based.
We're in the northeast part of Tennessee and around Knoxville. Wow. So
that's a building. I was driving down Route 9, main thoroughfare, June 16th. This building catches my eye. I know what it is. It's the main building of a psychiatric center. Okay, that's being torn down. So one of the things that we do is we use this kind of like as a talking point, because mental health at its best, the tearing down of walls. Because you and Andrew have very similar roles. I heard you talking beforehand, and both of you were shaking your head up and down like, yeah, I get that. I understand that. And the different doors. you know, the door of addiction, the door of mental health. And the point that you made, you know, about the fact that, you know, mental health and addiction, you know, they kind of like, you know, they generate each other. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that whole question, you know, is it mental health that created the addiction, or addiction created mental health?
Or vice versa. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this here we use as a, you know, as a logo of, you know, this is the way it should be, because Andrew's a big proponent of tear down the silos.
Yeah.
But then there's another one, another picture,
Mm-hmm.
and Alyssa's going to bring that up.
And you have an MHA down in Tennessee. You're familiar with the MHA down there? Mental Health America or Mental Health Association?
Yeah, I've heard it's more closer to the Nashville area where that's really more powerful.
That's where. Yeah.
So Andrew's going to tell the story of this image.
So MHAs were founded by a gentleman named Clifford Beer. There's about 255 MHAs throughout the country. A lot of them are located at the state capitals to do lobbying, but then there's agencies like ours who do the work, do the on the ground work. And anyway, this Clifford Beers was an inpatient psych patient at state hospital, and back in the early 1900s. Treated horribly, he thought, you know, probably sprayed down with hoses and all sorts of chains and linked a chain to the wall. And so he got out, and it took him a long time to get out. He got out, and he said, you know, I'm calling for all these chains and shackles to be sent to me, because we got to get rid of that stuff, and we got to evolve to a more humane type of treatment. And then they forged this bell, which is pretty cool. And it says forged in the chains and shackles. And it was from the chains and shackles of psychiatric institutions. Now I think we've gone too far. I was just communicating with our county executive, who was just on Fox News right before this. He was talking about, you know, something in New York, and I jokingly texted and said, you know, too bad you didn't mention my name. What's up? And he, I said, well, feel free to mention my name if you ever talk about how we've gone too far in closing these institutions, because, you know, there needs to be some humane type of appropriate housing for people with mental illness, because now too many of them are struggling mightily. And we're trying to get them to fit in the apartments. But, you know, the recidivism, back in jail, in and out of jail, prison, for your brother, you know, getting evicted from apartment after apartment. Our agents like ours are trying to pick up these pieces, but it's a never-ending battle. And not everybody needs an institution like that, and we certainly don't need it to be the way it was back in the 1900s. But we absolutely need some type of, you know, more support, because, you know, people are struggling nowadays.
But I think, you know, I just want to say this, Clint, that, you know, what Andrew's saying, it's you know, it's not, can I say, politically correct, politically received? I mean, everybody's advocating, you know, close down the institution, but to what? There's a phantom system of care. And the other thing is, it's interesting, is we yell and scream about closing down congregate care for individuals dealing with mental health issues, but yet we applaud it and start building when we talk about community care for people that are older, you know, senior communities. Which is kind of like, you know, you're kidding me, right?
Well, and one of the things we see a lot, which we're a dual diagnosis center for that fact, because you know, we have so many of our patients that, you know, they're dealing with bipolar disorders and things like that, and you know, I always explain it to people that, you know, it's sort of like having a car engine and the carburetor and which I'm aging myself there, carburetors, we don't have those anymore, but your carburetor and your alternator are both bad, and you only fix the carburetor, you still got an engine that won't run right, and it's going to probably tear up the rest of the engine before it's over with. And we see a lot of that, like Andrew was talking about the recidivism. A lot of the stuff that we deal with when we see patients come back to us is that it was more mental health driven, because, you know, it was just, and like I said, they feed each other, you know, so it's a tough situation. And when I was in Mississippi, one of the biggest challenges we had was we would get patients who couldn't get into any of the state hospitals because they were so full. but they also had addiction problems, and would try to come to our center, but they needed stabilization on the mental health side. And so you would battle that, trying to get them the help that they needed to get them stabilized enough to even really do any recovery work. And so, yeah, I agree completely. I think we've gone way too far in the other direction.
Yeah, you got to struggle with your staff who are
Yeah.
used to addiction issues, and now you have this level of people with mental health because they have no other place to go trying to get in. They don't feel comfortable. So
Right.
you got to do this whole training. They're
Yeah.
not they're very kind, good people. So what if they're talking to themselves or hearing?
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, but it's hard to retrain people. There's so much stigma attached to addiction and mental health that even people in the field don't know how to act or be or.
Well, one of the biggest challenges that I've had, not just here, anywhere I've been, and that's changed here. It just took some time, but is dealing with staff who, for instance, you would have a guy come in and on the second day I would have staff go, well, Clint, this guy's just got a horrible attitude, and he's hard to deal with. He doesn't want to get out of bed. He doesn't want to go to group, and that's so. Well, how long has he been here? Well, this is his second day. And well, what was he using? Well, he was using heroin. Well, how long was he using heroin? Well, about 3 years. So you'd have to walk that back and go, so you got a guy that's been shooting heroin for 3 years straight, and he comes to treatment, and the first thing we do is take away his drugs and won't give him any. He's going to be in a bad mood. He's withdrawing.
Not happy-go-lucky and smart.
Yeah, right. And sort of that concept of, we don't admit well people, so they're not going to walk in the door and act, like we would expect them to. And so a lot of that, like you're talking about with staff, is training them what to expect and just to not be shocked by it. And that's actually very normal for them. I had an old clinical supervisor years ago that he would talk about that, and he'd go, you can always count on your patients to do what they're supposed to do, whether they're acting out or they're ill or they're mad or whatever. He said the problem is training staff on how to respond to that, and so that's a lot of the challenge there. And like I said, when you bring in mental health into that, it throws an extra layer onto that really can make it difficult at times for staff.
Could I ask you to, in your bio, you talk about writing books. I mean, I have a title for your 5th book.
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind. And the title is "We Don't Admit Well People."
We don't admit well people.
You gotta write that down. That is the title for your book.
Yeah, actually, I'm actually working on one similar, not the same title, but about that. It's for addiction workers.
Talk to us about your writing and your publishing.
Well, I've written different books at different times. I started early out. I came from, my grandparents were both authors, and so that's kind of, I guess, where I caught that bug. And so I probably if I had to pick a favorite, I wrote one a few years back called "The Prison with No Bars," and it was for families. One of the things we're working on here, and one of the things we don't see a lot of, is a true family program that really helps families understand what they're looking at and what they're experiencing with their loved one. It's for family members with addict loved ones. And things that such as enabling, a lot of times what you find with families is they think they're helping, and they're trying their best. They're desperate. And so they think, well, okay, I'm going to, I'll pay their light bill for them this time. And they promise me they will never do it again. Then they do it again, and helping them understand what that's about. And triangulation with parents, I get mom to give in, but not dad. And so I'm going to try to triangulate them and, helping families understand what's going on, but also to give them hope. There's a big section in the book about, okay, they're in treatment. What do you do now? Well, you let the professionals treat them. You a lot of times therapists, they have, and I'm a therapist by trade. And so I can remember I used to have patients come into treatment and their parents would call me, or their wife or their spouse, and go, "Now this is what you need to talk to them about." And so, well, why did you send them to me? Why didn't you just do that? Kind of helping them understand that. But it's because they love them so much and they want to help. They want to make sure they're getting honest and those kind of things. And some of the science, it talks a lot about the science behind addiction and the hijacked brain, and really, that no, your loved one's not a sociopath. This is just what happens in addiction, that prefrontal lobe is so fogged up that there's not a lot of good judgment going on there. So that is probably my favorite one, because I think, maybe from personal experience, with my brother and things like that, there's just I think in the addiction treatment world, that gets forgotten pretty easily sometimes, is that when an addict is sick in active addiction, everybody that loves that person is sick as well in different ways, and helping them understand, what they can do to help, what's the difference in good help and what's the difference in enabling, and things that I think sometimes we overlook. Okay, now I've sent Andrew to treatment and I love him to death, he's about to get out. What do I do now? Am I supposed to go with him to the meetings and follow him everywhere he goes, or do I back away? Not really understanding what they need to do. And also setting boundaries. It's no's a complete sentence. It's okay to say no. I'm not giving you any more money today. Those kind of things. Because a lot of times you find families feel guilty for doing that. Especially in situations where maybe a parent at one time had an addiction issue, and so there's a lot of guilt-driven type parenting. It's like, well, I can't really say anything. I should help them because I had this problem, and kind of helping them balance that, and that concept of sometimes you do the most help by not helping at all and just backing away and setting a boundary. And so that's probably my favorite one. I've read some others about gratitude and the power of gratitude, especially in recovery. What that can look like for people. So,
one of the things that we talk about as a constant theme is that families have a tendency to get better slower.
Yeah, they do.
And the fact is, and I think it's great that you're talking about developing some type of presence because families need. Somebody recently contacted me. Okay? Personal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have a son.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That needs treatment.
Yeah.
So they make arrangements, okay, for the treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I talked to her about is you guys need to jump in to see somebody too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because as you're hoping he's changing, he's hoping you're changing.
Yeah.
And as sooner or later you're going to meet, there's going to be no pun intended, but there is going to be an intersection again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and a lot of times you'll see with family programs, you have to be real careful because sometimes patients will try to sabotage family therapy, by doing things, well, now listen, don't talk to Clint about this. We don't want to talk about that, and when those are the very things that need to be addressed and talked about and faced, and that's just where they are in the moment, and understanding that's actually a normal thing to see happen, and so you're going to gotta navigate all of those things. And but yeah, I fully agree with that. My wife is in recovery, and one of the things that she talks a lot about was the change that had to take place with her dad, who had always been her main enabler. And he talks about that as well, about, I had to get better. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I was doing the best I could and what I was supposed to as a father, but I found out actually I was helping the problem get worse. And so you kind of see this dual thing now, that they were both getting better together, and learning about what they each needed to do individually and to kind of make that miracle of recovery happen.
That's one of the things I learned doing these Zoom podcasts is that and I already knew it, but it really highlighted, because you're not the only one to talk about families not being engaged in treatment.
Yeah.
And you and I run very similar programs. They used to call them halfway houses, community residents. And we've really, because of this, I've really had a bigger push toward engaging families and getting them involved, and even in the mental health world, the client doesn't want to, how quick do we say, who can we sign a consent form for your family? Once they're adults, we don't ask that question enough.
Right.
And as a community of providers, we don't ask that question enough, because you need that family to get involved. And in the addiction world, we've been engaging more, but maybe you and I talk later on how we're going to roll that out in our programs a little bit or more, because it's obviously very important. So
yeah, it is.
And one of the things I do is show these intersections
Great.
In all the community residents. We have the residents sit and watch them.
Yeah.
Just to throw it out there, we have the YouTube channel with intersections.
Yeah.
You can find it, and all the topics are very relevant to all the people staying in your programs.
Oh man, yeah.
We have the intersections program that we created, and then Andrew provided an open door to come in and test it in his group homes. We have a manual, we have modules, we have tape. So we're at the point right now of version 3 of the manual that it's ready to go.
Oh man.
So we're going to talk to Andrew about printing it, and let's try it.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's talk.
Yeah, it's similar to your rain therapy. I mean, it sounds like you and your partner established this protocol for that rain therapy.
Yeah, it one of the problems that it wasn't a problem, it was just the nature of how equine therapy works. There never had really been a model that was fully focused on addiction and trauma. And that's kind of where it came from. Like with powerlessness and things like that, there was not really, there's a lot of great programs like a gala programs and things like that are really good, but we kept struggling with, we need this thing to attack addiction and the topics that come up in addiction, like powerlessness. Well, what is that? Unmanageability. Well, when you got a 1,200-pound horse, you got to understand what you can do and what you can't do with it, and powerlessness. And so it's an easy thing to show a patient. And so with experiential therapy, it's less about telling them, about where they are and what they need to do to get better. And you can really show them, well, this is what it looks like in your life. This is what powerlessness and unmanageability looks like. And it kind of sticks with them a little bit, especially younger patients, like 18 to 25 respond so well to that. It's kind of more up their alley, they're out moving. And so, plus it's just good in recovery. The more you can get them out and get them moving more quickly, the more quickly they get engaged. It's just something about we're built to move, and so we try to get them in and get them on their feet and get them moving as quickly as we can. And because one of the things, especially with opiate use, the first couple of weeks, a lot of times they're still really foggy, and so the quicker you can get the body engaged, the quicker that kind of starts clearing up as well. So but yeah, I love those modes of therapy. We have a really good experiential therapist here right now that does just all kind of great things with our patients. And we've got a therapy dog that comes twice a week, and they eat it up. They love it,
Do you ever capture any of this stuff on video?
We have at different times.
If you could share it with us, because we can post it on our sites as well.
Sure. One of the big things that I had to adjust to, and it was just kind of like what you were talking about, Dr. Force, about you're trained a certain way early on. And one of the things I had to learn was it's hard for patients who are coming off heavy drugs those first couple of weeks to sit through an hour-long didactic, and I have trouble with it, and and so kind of mixing that up and kind of giving them some different approaches to where they really they engage. They have to engage more physically. It keeps them interested more easily, and then that makes the moments where you do sit down and have those really, those hour-long really didactic type sessions, group sessions with them, they're more apt to lock into that because they've kind of had that mental break from doing other stuff and messing with the therapy dog and those kind of things. So it kind of engages them a little heavier. Because I early on, I had patients going. I had a patient one morning, and I had come in, and he said, I asked him how he was doing, and he said, "I'm fine." He said, "I'm just dreading the day, And of course, I tried to be all, therapeutic about it. And I said, "Well, that's gratitude and positivity." And he went, "Man, look, I got to sit through 6 hours of groups where I'm listening to somebody talk," and it really hit me as like, man, we got to do something different. So that's kind of where that started coming along, is kind of mixing that up, and it worked really well.
Well, it's all about change and flexibility and the ability to, learn and not have a mindset that we know it all, because
right. Yeah.
we're all learning every day about what might work. And that's the great thing about being the head of an agency, is that you have the autonomy to tweak things and change things. I used to work for county government, and I couldn't do it anymore because, the idea of changing the word "the" to something else on a form took like 8 weeks of meeting.
And you got to include 8 different people.
Just you notice something doesn't work, you can roll it out, and it doesn't work, try something different. It's okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that we now have available that we didn't have available before, and some of it's by choice, and some of it we have no choice, is the use of this technology.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think really the 4 of us would have found each other if
No.
And here we are.
Yeah, and one of the things too that's been really cool for us is in the East Tennessee area, we have several EAPs that, because we have so many welders unions and things like that, but we also have several big companies. And for instance, the city of Knoxville, we work with their EAP, and we do a lot of virtual health that way, because you have a lot of low acuity issues for employees that, maybe not something that warrants going into an inpatient setting, but maybe I'm having marital problems, or maybe I've begun to drink more than I think I should, and maybe I've got a problem. I need to just talk to somebody, or I'm having trouble with my children, or whatever. And so a lot of those brief therapy sessions, like you were talking about, Dr. Force, it just kind of let me get recentered and talk to somebody about it. We've started doing that all virtual. And, to be honest with you, I kind of worried about it initially, because I thought, I don't know if the connection is there with people, especially for therapists, because a lot of therapists really want that one-to-one sitting across the room from each other and facing each other and really connecting. But it's turned out really well. We're seeing a really good response. That they seem to really get a lot out of it. And sometimes it's nothing more that we're finding with them, with those type patients, is it's nothing more than they just really needed to sit down and talk to somebody that wouldn't judge them and would accept them, and that's all they really needed, and then they were fine. So. But I think the technology is incredible. I think it's opened up a whole new area for us that wasn't there before.
But I have to say, as we now bring this session to a close, if you think this is the first and only conversation you're having with us, get that out of your mind.
Oh no,
because I think this is wonderful, and we're going to continue to build upon it.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I told my wife works in the addiction field too. And I was telling her about it this morning. I was really excited about getting to talk with you guys. I think we need more of it. And if nothing else, I think sometimes for addiction, people that work in the addiction field especially, man, it's just like with Andrew. He was talking when we first started, and I was like, man, this guy, he's got the same stuff I got going on, and so sometimes it helps just to talk to other people that really go, yeah, man, I get it. Let me tell you what happened to me, but I think it's the only way we're going to move the addiction field forward. Before we came on, I was talking about right now in Knox County, we're averaging 1 overdose death a day right now.
Yeah. And
so I don't think the issue that we see with, another issue, these overdose deaths, in the nation continue to grow, we continue to set records. I don't think it's that we don't have enough people. We obviously need more. We got plenty of compassionate people. I think it's just really getting together and going, all right, what we've been doing is not as effective as we need it to be. What can we do? Who's got some ideas? And I think these are a good path to do that, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Good
Great.
stuff.
I've enjoyed it.
So good. So at this point, we're going to turn it back to Alyssa. She'll get some contact information you can share, and
Sure.
off we go.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So
Sure, guys.
Clint, if people wanted to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
They can email me. My email is ccrawford@journeypure.com. Or you can call me personally if you want to. My number is 662-587-4381. People do that all the time. I don't mind a bit. Anytime, day or night, doesn't matter at all. But I'd love to talk to anybody out there. I love connecting with people.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And
Thank you, guys.
thank you, Andrew and Larry. This was definitely a special exchange going on. And thank you for joining us today. You've been listening to Intersections Policy, Program, and Practice Exchange. And if you want to hear this program again, share it with friends, or leave a comment, you can do so by logging on to the Digital Resource Center on our website, www.intersections-exchange.org. Until next week, take care.